Hey, I'm Menoe. This is my Hardcore Ironman. In this series, I'm going for a max streak at the Arch-Glacor, where I'm losing my status. Current enrage right below 1700%. I really need to play perfectly. Don't want to lose my status, but also the frozen core in the chest is tempting as well. Look at that dive cooldown. I accidentally clicked it into the corner instead of using it for my diagonal. That's not a good play. Good thing I finished that spectral grind. Sure, I would have survived anyways, I think, but it helps with the nerves so much, having barricade. Okay, I made it out. That was a scary one. I don't care about the loot, I'm just happy I'm getting closer to claiming this core. It's gonna be a nice chest if I survive. No back-to-back mistakes at least. Oh, there's a chaos die as well. That's good. Water battle staves. Another smooth kill coming in. Crafting, why not? 1700 rage now. This update is scaring me a bit. I don't like client crashes and they're always on Mondays, pretty much. So yeah, there's a hardcore tip for you. Oh, another rare, what? Filling artifact number 3. I don't need them at all, because I have 4 from normal mode, but that's still fun to get. What the frozen core number 2, that's insane. I've never had a double chest. Wow, this is a 6 unique chest, that's crazy. Just missing some nihilists for a full log. I really need to calm down though, I'm shaking. There's 0 chance I'm getting another drop, but here we go, back to back. Ah, that's still good. There you go, the next beam tank. That's the reason why I'm using immortality. Always prepare for failure. I made 2 back-to-back mistakes there. Here's the first one. I shouldn't have tried to move 2 tiles, only 1. Here's the second mistake. Another 2 tiles. I don't know why I did that. Once I got to this spot, I knew I was on thin ice. I should have surged before my global cooldown finished. But since I didn't do it, I was scared I would get one of those weird backwards surges. You know, when you play dive, surge and end up in the same spot. The scary part about beams is that if you take damage, then you get rooted into place by either the immortality in this case or by a sign of life. The way to avoid this is to step into the beam and surge on the same tick. That way you won't get stuck in the beam and take additional damage and you'll end up alive. Bit of a close call, but I knew what I was doing at least. Did I still shit my pants? Yep. I didn't like this kill. Not at all. Was it worth it? I guess it's one of the better drops. It's time I show you a 2000 enrage Hardcore Ironman Glacor attempt. Summon everything, shout out that guy. One new thing I've been starting to do at these higher enrages is to use Disruption Shield before the kill starts. The way I prep these kills is that I always do a warm-up enrage push on my Ironman. And I've noticed when I'm nervous, I tend to place my hand wrong sometimes on the keyboard, and then I end up not clicking the correct deflect curses. And if I do that and also get the flurry mechanic, the focused attacks, then I end up with a signed hardcore and a full kill left at 200 heart rate. So my solution to that was to Disruption Shield at the bank whenever I remember it, or before the kill starts. When I get arms as the first mechanic, then I usually just build up 100 adren afterwards and go for an insta living death triple skulls DPS rotation. Luckily I got the focused attacks here, so I can just continue going for big damage. Apparently, from what I've heard at least, the melee attacks can never be dodged, so it will always clear your disruption shield. I don't think I've ever seen a dodged melee attack, so I think it could be correct. The range and mage hit can be dodged though for sure. You have the proof right there. I try to remember Vengeance whenever I have this hard hitting mechanic, but I tend to forget it a lot. I've always struggled with Venge cooldown. At this point the beams are coming up, so I spend all my stacks and then I try to build up to 100 a run again. I've done beams enough times to know approximately how long I have to build 100 a run, but if you're struggling and you get to the corner at like 90, then you can use defensive basic attacks to build more. Mostly just anticipate, preparation, I guess you could use divert if you have that, or just resonance. And once you're 100 you can just Kade or immortality, but I guess that's pretty much a hardcore only strategy. I don't think I would recommend it if you're an Ironman or normal main account. My cannon strat hasn't changed since 0% rage. Still devotion, anticipate or freedom. Now I've had every mechanic but the minions, so it's easy to predict what's coming next. With that in mind, I probably shouldn't have used skulls, saved it for after minions, but I'm not very good at this game, so it's fine. Here I used threads, sap, volley. I often clear all but one of them, and then I use the last one to build a dren, and then I go back to the big laser. Don't feel like invoke death before threads is needed yet. I'm set up to do a full DPS rotation here with living death, but instead I go for weapon spec and spend all my stacks. The reason why I didn't insta living death was because the next mechanic was completely random since it was the 6th mechanic. So that gave me an 80% chance to not be able to do a triple skulls rotation, and I thought that was a bit of a waste. Here's the good old B mechanic. I immortality this time since my barricade is not off cooldown yet. As you can tell, I haven't learned from my mistakes. I still take 2 steps sometimes, but it's fine as long as I don't do 2 steps back to back. Otherwise I have to repeat my tick perfect surge, and I don't like doing that on a hardcore. It's a bit too risky on the off chance that I mess up. It does happen sometimes, so I'd rather not. See if you can spot what's wrong with this kill. I'll give you until this mechanic is done. Here's the answer. I forgot to summon my Blood Reaver, so I don't have any familiar at all. I've been using Blood Reaver without scrolls until now. Well, I have scrolls, I just don't use them. But I was considering Hellhound for 2k plus, because I thought it might be, well, safer. Couldn't make up my mind, so I ended up with none of them. Here I'm 100 a rent, so I could use my living death, but instead I'm stalling, so I'm using bloat, weapon spec, building stacks, and then going for 100 a rent after I know what mechanic is coming. This one is arms, so I living death and go for triple skulls. I'm not sure if it's worth it to living death triple skulls into arms, but when in doubt I always go for the DPS option, because otherwise I'm gonna hold living death for 5 minutes and then I'm not gonna do any damage. So I'd rather just spend it, do it suboptimal rotation, and then end up with some damage instead of very little. As we know from 1500 rage, I get 1 shot from every hit of this focused attack. But I still prefer this mechanic. I think it's my favorite, because I like doing damage and just prayer flick. It's simple enough. I just like turning the brain off, do damage, prayer flick a bit. And if I mess up the prayer flicks, then I'm bad enough to not deserve the streak, so it's fine either way. At high end range, I like to end the focus attacks with resonance so I can get full HP. And whenever I get focus attacks into minions, then I always end with a defensive, so I don't die to an invisible animation. After immunity mechanics, I like to apply the debuffs, vulnerability, ghost, bloat, and now I just spend stacks. Living death is nowhere close, so I go for weapon spec instead. Now I'm getting arms, so I just prepare my souls so I can do a ECB spec. Well, I always say ECB, it's split souls, but yeah, bloat, volley on the arms, and then build the run. Squeeze in a life transfer since I'm not taking damage for a couple seconds. I prioritize bloat upkeep instead of going living death since I don't have adrenaline potion. I don't like being around 50 adrenaline, so I build a run. Always want to have defensives available if I ever end up needing them. And now I'm gonna need them, because it's canon. Upkeep bloat, go for anticipate, devotion, and then build stacks, dump damage. Now my adrenaline potion cooldown is gone, which means I can prep for living death. So I go for that instantly, then touch adrenaline pot, skulls, and now I'm getting beams, which is annoying because now I can't do a triple skulls. But I still think it's worth going for it. At least I get a bit of damage in. Here's one of the relaxing versions of beams, where I have adrenaline for Cade, and it's also not on cooldown. Diagonal dive, wait a few ticks, Cade, and I surge as I'm moving to avoid any weird backwards surges. Now for my favorite mechanic again, the flurry. Sadly I don't have any good cooldowns remaining. Well, I have skulls, but first I need to resummon my army so I can get a ghost and apply haunt, which adds damage to every good ability. Well, every bad ability as well. But yeah, I don't want to do a big DPS rotation without haunt active. Main thing is upkeep bloat and try to do damage by spending stacks. I should also use weapon spec, but I'm not doing it for some reason. I'm bad because I'm nervous doing Hardcore Ironman. If my prayer flicks feel a bit off, then I do defensives such as reflect or debilitate. I always prioritize reflect since it does extra damage back to Glacor. But if I'm struggling, then I do debilitate afterwards, just to secure the kill. Here I'm getting minions, but I'm mostly focusing on flurry, because you don't want to miss that, then you're done. The minions, they don't do much, so you can just threads volley zap, and then they're pretty much cleared. Target cycle back to Glacor, and also click the orbs. Get some free, 12k damage, a bit less. Try to keep high health so I don't die to some dumb mistake. Here I'm getting beams. Ideally I skip the beams here, but I want to have enough adrenaline to also barricade if I can't skip it. So it's a bit of a balance act. There you have it, 2000 rage on a hardcore. Loot, Glacor remnants. I'm not gonna complain about this chest, it's amazing. If I claim this at 200 streak, then I would be happy. All the other drops are whatever. How about a like for the most likely world first, no familiar, no food, 2k Glacor on a hardcore. Thanks for watching.